Good evening everybody, Luk here for another one-shot opinion video, and for this week I am talking about something that is very close to my heart, and that is the genre of science fiction. Yes, a genre which I feel is massively underappreciated. But before we get into the one-shot opinion video, we're going to have a little bit of music to fit the theme of science fiction. And T-Larc, the blue and black fox with a heart of gold, has been kind enough to give us permission to use Kuro from his new album, She. So, we're going to have that going. But yes, what is my opinion? Science fiction is underappreciated, and here's why. So yes, you often see science fiction as being portrayed as like camp B-movies, like The Thing from outer space, that sort of, just like, that generic sort of like B-movie sort of thing. But there's so many other things that science fiction is, that's more of like the camp, soft science fiction. What I feel is underappreciated is the hard science fiction. So the sorts of things that make us question what it means to be human. Blade Runner is a perfect example of this. Questioning, do androids dream of electric sheep? What makes a robot what makes a human human? Can AI become human through time, having developed feelings and emotions? Like, these are things that have been questioned for decades, but now with more sophisticated AI that are able to come across as human themselves, mimic human qualities, that it's starting to blur the line between what is robots and what is human. And I find that fascinating, but it's just never talked enough about, and I find it exciting. The next few decades are going to be fascinating when it comes to android-human relations. But the second thing that I wanted to move on to was, the main point of this video, I may add, is the consequences of bleeding-edge tech. Now, in science fiction, you see a lot of tech which is beyond our wildest dreams. You would never see that ever. And no, I'm not talking about the tardigrades from Star Trek Discovery, because yes, that is a little bit of a travesty, coming from a guy that does love tardigradology. But yes, the sort of bleeding edge tech that I am talking about is the sort of thing that we see in Black Mirror for a start, the social side of things. So, one example of this, especially in Black Mirror, is the episode Nosedive. Yes, I know this has been talked about to death, but deserves to be talked about more, because it's quite scary. And for a little fluff that is on the internet, yeah, having like a credit score or sort of like your own personal information collected and then related to you, that's quite terrifying. But this has been the case in China with the Zima credit, also called Sesame credit, for like an anglicization of it, I suppose. But yeah, where they are taking people's activities and essentially applying those to an algorithm, which then results in saying what you can and can't do, but potentially adding you to government blacklists, limiting travel, rentals, loans. Like, there's been cases where people aren't able to rent apartments because they don't have a high enough social score according to the Zima credit. And again, that's a terrifying thought. Something that does have to be stated, though, there is a slight difference between the sensationalized sort of bleeding edge tech in respect to this algorithm for Nosedive compared to Zima credits, as it's not actually a direct comparison, as we do have some of those similar aspects being limited as to what you are and aren't able to do, but we then have those differences where the things that are enforced aren't a consequence of social activities, or more to the point, not a consequence of other people judging your social activities. It's more of a point of a set algorithm deciding what you can and can't do to gain or lose score. And that is an important difference when it does come to the bleeding edge tech. But another sort of more out there thing when it comes to this bleeding edge section of the one-shot opinion video is The Fly. Now, yes, that is a rather camp science fiction movie, but I love The Fly. It is one of the best science fiction movies in my opinion, and yes, it sort of shows what would happen if we were to have a teleporter that spliced people together. And I suppose it is a sort of like a look at what splicing and genome splicing could ultimately have, what effects those could have, and sort of like the monstrosities that could unfold and all of that sort of thing. But it's an interesting thought. Yes, what consequences can the folly of man, if we put it like that, have upon ourselves if we do go down the route of splicing genomes of other animals with our own? That's an interesting thought, and again, it's something that is not looked at enough when it comes to science fiction. But the last point that I did want to bring across when it comes to why I feel that science fiction is underappreciated is the fact that so many developments and so much inspiration have been a consequence of movies and TV shows. So taking Star Trek as just one example, one singular example, there have been several cases where reality has reflected fiction. So we've got iPads, Bluetooth, flip phones, floppy disks, USB sticks. Where did we all see those before they were properly developed in reality? Why, Star Trek, of course. So yes, we had iPads, they were called pads with 2Ds. Bluetooth was just a thing with their headsets. Flip phones, the Motorola flip phone was based upon tricorders, I believe. I'll bring that up now as a small sort of like aside. Floppy disks in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, like we saw in Star Trek, insertion of like little plastic discs into machines, and they were able to record and take data. That's amazing. Like, and now that we've moved on to again more of a USB sort of storage of data, again, that's been seen in Star Trek. Reality is mimicking fiction, and science fiction is underappreciated, as we need to look more at science fiction to essentially influence what we are currently doing, as there are many questions that are pondered in the world of science fiction, in like books, TV, movies, and yet we are living in a crazy time. We are living in a mad, insane period of history, which is very uncertain. But if we can take some of these influences and some of these questions from science fiction and the movies and films and games and books that it inspires, I feel that there can be many more discoveries that are beneficial to humanity, and many more discoveries of a more philosophical nature as well. And yes, I believe I will end this one-shot opinion video there. I do squeak on, rather, but before I end this video, again, I want to say a massive thanks to T-Larc, the blue and black fox with the heart of gold, for letting us feature his music in the background. I do believe that it is very apt for the discussion of how underappreciated science fiction is, as it seems to be very influenced by gaming and sort of like the unknown and that scientific sort of like nature, and I love it. Again, album is She. I'll bring it up on screen now. Track is called Kuro. It's being released in early August, I believe. And yeah, I've already pre-ordered my copy because it's great. I love the music. Go listen to it. Like you can go listen to nice music without me squeaking over it. But yes, sadly it does come to that shill bit of the video. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If not, that's perfectly fine as well. Those sorts of things can just go and be left behind, much like many philosophical and practical science fiction questions are, as yes, science fiction is underappreciated, and that was why. But yes, thanks so much for watching all of our videos. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and good night.